7 years of silence. 7 years of humiliation. Tonight, Queen Serena Valcrest stood outside her husband's chamber and heard the truth that would shatter everything. Alpha King Kael Dravenor would rather poison himself unconscious than spend one night with his own mate. The kingdom called her weak, barren, a mistake wearing a crown. They whispered she'd be replaced soon, discarded like damaged goods. But as Serena's fingers curled against the cold stone wall, something ancient stirred beneath her skin, something that had been sleeping, waiting. And when it woke, the man who rejected her would learn a devastating truth. The queen he threw away was the only thing keeping his throne from crumbling to ash. If you want to see a rejected queen become unstoppable, stay until the end. Like this video and comment what city you're watching from. The Grand Hall of Dravenor Castle had never felt colder. Serena stood at the edge of the winter solstice banquet, a ghost in silk and diamonds. Around her, the kingdom's elite laughed and drank and pretended she didn't exist. 7 years as queen, and she'd perfected the art of being invisible in plain sight. More wine, Your Majesty. She turned to find a young servant, barely 16, looking at her with something close to pity. That stung worse than contempt. No, thank you. The girl hurried away, probably grateful to escape before the queen's bad luck rubbed off on her. Across the hall, Kael sat on his throne, tall, brutal, magnificent, everything an Alpha King should be. Dark hair pulled back from a face carved from stone and arrogance, eyes like winter storms, a body built for violence and leadership in equal measure. And he was looking everywhere except at her. Serena had memorized the exact angle of his deliberate avoidance. 37 degrees to the left. Always. Pathetic, isn't it? Lady Morgana appeared at Serena's elbow, resplendent in crimson velvet that made Serena's pale blue gown look like mourning clothes. The Duke's daughter had never bothered to hide her contempt. What is? Serena kept her voice neutral. Emotion was a weapon here. She'd learned not to hand them ammunition. You. Standing here like a kicked dog, hoping he'll throw you a scrap of attention. Morgana's smile was razor sharp. Everyone knows he can't stand to touch you. 7 years married and still no heir. At some point, the council will have to acknowledge reality. Reality. Serena tasted the word. Bitter. That you're defective, barren, dragging down a bloodline that's ruled for 300 years. Morgana leaned closer, her perfume cloying. They say he drugs himself to sleep rather than perform his duty with you. Is that true? The floor seemed to tilt beneath Serena's feet. Oh, don't bother denying it. The servants talk. His guard captain mentioned it to Lord Garrett, who told his wife, who told me over tea yesterday. Morgana's eyes glittered with malice. Every night, the Alpha King drinks tinctures laced with sleeping herbs because the thought of claiming you is so repulsive, he'd rather be unconscious. Something cracked inside Serena's chest. Not her heart. That had broken years ago. This was different, deeper, like a foundation giving way. Excuse me. She walked. Not fled. She still had that much pride, but moved with purpose toward the east corridor, away from the music and laughter and the weight of 100 judging eyes. Behind her, Morgana's laugh rang out like breaking glass. The corridor was empty. Cold. Serena pressed her back against the stone wall and tried to breathe through the pressure building behind her ribs. He drugged himself. To avoid her. To make unconsciousness preferable to... Steady, girl. She looked up to find Elder Rothman watching her from the shadows. The old wolf was technically retired from the council, but everyone knew he still pulled strings from the background. I'm fine. No, you're not. He moved closer, his cane tapping against marble. But you will be. Eventually. Is that supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be honest. His eyes, still sharp despite his age, studied her face. You know what they're planning, don't you? Her stomach dropped. Who? The council. They're meeting tomorrow to discuss alternatives. Alternatives. Such a polite word for replacement. He can divorce me any time, Serena said quietly. The mate bond doesn't require him to keep me as queen. Divorce would be too public, too messy. No, they're thinking of something more permanent. The implication hung between them like a noose. They want me gone. Not a question. They want the bloodline secured. You're an obstacle to that. Rothman's expression softened slightly. I argued against it, for what that's worth. But I'm one voice among 12. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve a chance to run. Tonight, before they kill me. Serena finished the sentence he couldn't. Is Kale part of this plan? Rothman hesitated. He abstained from the vote. That hurt worse than a yes. He couldn't even be bothered to save her or condemn her. She was that irrelevant. Thank you for the warning. She pushed away from the wall, forcing her spine straight. If she was going to die, she wouldn't do it cowering. Where are you going? Rothman called after her. To see my husband. Kale's private chambers occupied the north tower, as far from Serena's rooms as possible, while still being in the same castle. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. 2 guards flanked the door, both looking uncomfortable when Serena approached. Your Majesty. The younger one, Marcus, at least had the decency to sound apologetic. The king left orders not to be disturbed. I'm his wife. Yes, but are you really going to tell a queen she can't see her own husband? They exchanged glances. Marcus sighed. 5 minutes, please. The door swung open. Kale's chambers were everything hers weren't. Warm, lived in, masculine and powerful, with weapons mounted on walls and furs covering the massive bed. That bed. Where he slept alone every night rather than, what are you doing here? She spun to find Kyle emerging from his bathing room, half-dressed in loose pants and nothing else. Water still dripped from his hair down the carved muscles of his chest. 7 years and she'd never seen him like this. Vulnerable, exposed. It should have made her heart race. Instead, she felt nothing but cold, spreading emptiness. We need to talk. No, we don't. He crossed to his desk, deliberately putting furniture between them. Whatever you want, take it up with the council. The council wants me dead. That made him pause. What? Elder Rothman just warned me. They're meeting tomorrow to discuss removing the obstacle to your bloodline. Serena kept her voice steady through sheer force of will. So I thought, before I'm quietly poisoned or accidentally fall from a tower, I should ask my husband one question. Kale's jaw tightened. Serena. Why? The word came out broken despite her best efforts. Why what? Why mate with me at all if you found me so repulsive? You're the Alpha King. You could have refused the bond, chosen someone else. But you accepted me in front of the entire kingdom, made vows, put this crown on my head, and then spent 7 years making sure I knew it was all a mistake. He said nothing, just stood there like a statue carved from ice. Was it political? She pressed on, needing to understand. Did your council force you? Was my bloodline supposed to bring some advantage that didn't pan out? Your bloodline is irrelevant. The casual dismissal hit harder than a slap. Then what? What did I do that was so terrible you can't even stand to be in the same room with me? This conversation is over. No. Something in Serena's voice made him look at her, really look at her, for the first time in years. You owe me this much. 7 years of humiliation. 7 years of being treated like a piece of furniture everyone wishes they could throw out. The least you can do is tell me why. Kale's hands clenched into fists on the desktop. You want the truth? Yes. You remind me of someone I'd rather forget. The admission came out harsh, bitter. Serena blinked. What? Your eyes, your voice, the way you move. He turned away, shoulders rigid. You look like her. Sound like her. And every time I see you, I'm back in that moment, watching her die because I wasn't strong enough to save her. Her, not a political arrangement, not a bloodline miscalculation, a ghost. Who was she? None of your business. I'm your wife. You're a mistake I've been living with for 7 years. Kale's control finally cracked, a constant reminder that I failed the one person who actually mattered. So no, Serena, I don't want to touch you. I don't want to look at you. I don't want to be in the same room as you because every second I spend pretending you're my mate is another second I'm betraying her memory. The silence that followed was absolute. Serena felt something inside her chest go very, very still. I see. 2 words. Calm. Almost conversational. Kale seemed to realize he'd gone too far. Serena, no, I understand now. Thank you for clarifying. She turned toward the door, movements precise, controlled. I'll make this easier for everyone. What does that mean? She paused at the threshold, looking back at him one last time. It means you win. I'm done. Wait. But she was already gone, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like an ending. Serena made it back to her own chambers before the shaking started. Not tears. She was beyond tears. This was rage. Pure and incandescent and 7 years in the making. She grabbed the first thing her hands found, a crystal vase, and hurled it at the wall. It shattered with a satisfying crash. Then another, a mirror, a jewelry box, a chair. Everything breakable in reach became a target for the fury that had been building since the moment Kael looked at her on their wedding night and flinched. Your Majesty, her handmaiden, Ilara, the only servant who'd stayed loyal, rushed in, eyes wide. Get out! But out! Ilara fled. Serena stood in the wreckage of her room, breathing hard, and felt something crack open inside her. Not breaking, hatching. The air around her began to shimmer, strange, wrong. She looked down at her hands and watched, distant and dreamlike, as her skin began to glow with a faint silver light. What? Pain lanced through her skull. Memories that weren't hers flooded in. Ancient, vast, terrible. A bloodline older than the kingdom. Power sealed away generations ago because it was too dangerous, too uncontrollable. Power that had been locked inside her from birth. Power that required one specific condition to break free, complete rejection by a mate. The seal, she understood with sudden crystal clarity, had been designed by her ancestors to protect their descendants. As long as a mate claimed them, loved them, bonded with them, the power stayed dormant, safe. But Kael had never claimed her, never bonded. For 7 years, he'd rejected her in every way except the final, formal severing of the mate bond. And tonight, he'd finally spoken the words out loud. You're a mistake. The seal shattered. Serena felt it break like chains falling away, and the force that poured into her nearly drove her to her knees. Too much. Too fast. 7 years of suppression releasing all at once. The walls of her chamber cracked. Windows blew outward. Every candle in the room ignited simultaneously. Somewhere in the castle, alarms started ringing. Serena threw her head back and screamed, not in pain, but in recognition of what she'd become. Not weak, never weak, just imprisoned in her own skin, waiting for the key that would set her free. And Kael had just handed it to her. By the time the guards reached her chambers, Serena had regained control. Barely. The power still thrummed beneath her skin like lightning waiting to strike, but she'd managed to pull it back. Contain it. For now. Your Majesty. Marcus skidded to a halt in the doorway, taking in the destruction. What happened? I dropped something. Her voice came out too calm, almost amused. Several somethings. The entire East Wing felt it. The king, Serena interrupted softly, can go to hell. Marcus's eyes widened. In 7 years, he'd never heard her speak with anything but careful politeness. I need you to do something for me, she continued. Tell the council I'll be attending their meeting tomorrow. Uninvited. I can't just... Yes, you can. Because in about 12 hours, everything is going to change. She smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. They want to discuss removing obstacles? Perfect. I have a few obstacles of my own I'd like to address. Your Majesty, I don't understand. You will. She dismissed him with a wave and turned to survey the wreckage of her room. Tomorrow she would walk into that council meeting and show them exactly what kind of queen they'd been sleeping on. Tonight, she had preparations to make, starting with a visit to the castle library, because if her newly awakened memories were correct, there were books hidden in the restricted section that would tell her exactly what she'd become and how to use it. The library was deserted at midnight. Perfect. Serena moved through the shadows like she'd done this 1,000 times before. Maybe, in some ancestral memory, she had. The restricted section was locked behind an iron gate that should have required a key. She placed her palm against the metal and felt the power respond. The lock melted. Inside, dust and darkness and books that hadn't been touched in centuries. She found what she was looking for on the third shelf. A leather-bound tome with no title, only a symbol burned into the cover. The same symbol that was now faintly glowing on her left wrist. Serena opened the book and began to read. The Valcrest Bloodline, a history of power and peril. In the time before kingdoms, when wolves ran wild and magic flowed freely through the land, the Valcrest line was born from a union between an alpha and a lunar spirit. The offspring carried power beyond measure, able to command elements, bend minds, shatter bonds that were thought unbreakable. But such power came at a cost. It consumed those who wielded it, turning them into something neither wolf nor spirit, but a hybrid that belonged to neither world. To prevent this fate, the earliest Valcrest matriarchs created a seal. Each daughter born to the line would have her power locked away from birth, dormant and harmless. The key to the seal was love, true mate love. As long as a Valcrest woman was claimed, cherished, bonded to her fated mate, the power stayed sleeping. But if that bond was rejected, if her mate chose denial over devotion, the seal would break, and the daughter would wake to her full inheritance. What followed was always the same. The rejected Valcrest became something the old texts called sovereign, neither quite mortal nor fully divine, powerful enough to reshape kingdoms, and every single one eventually destroyed the mate who'd rejected them. Serena closed the book slowly. Around her, the library had grown colder, or maybe that was just her. Destroyed them. She thought about Kael's face when he'd said she was a mistake, the casual cruelty, the 7 years of calculated neglect. Part of her, the part that had loved him once, desperately and foolishly, whispered that this was wrong, that revenge would only hollow her out further, but that part was getting quieter, drowned out by the new voice in her head. Ancient, merciless, the voice of every Valcrest woman who'd been rejected before her, and they all said the same thing, make him pay. Itratien. Dawn broke over Dravinor Castle like a wound splitting open. Serena stood at her window, watching the sun rise over a kingdom that had no idea what was coming. She'd spent the night reading, learning, understanding the full scope of what she'd become. Sovereign. The title fit like a second skin. A knock at her door, tentative, worried. Come in, Elara. Her handmaiden entered, carrying a breakfast tray. She immediately sat down when she saw Serena's face. Your Majesty, are you all right? No. Serena turned from the window. But I will be. Help me dress. I have a council meeting to crash. They'll never let you in. The session is closed. Then they'll have to throw me out. Serena smiled. I'd like to see them try. Elara hesitated, then moved to the wardrobe. What should you wear? Black. But that's for mourning. Exaliwam. The council chamber was exactly as Serena remembered. 12 high-backed chairs arranged in a semicircle facing the Alpha King's throne, currently occupied. Kael looked up when she entered, surprise flickering across his face before the usual mask of cold indifference slammed back into place. The council members were less controlled. What is the meaning of this? Lord Garrett rose from his chair, face reddening. This is a closed session. Sit down, Garrett. Serena's voice came out different than it had yesterday, harder, edged with something that made the old lord actually flinch. You dare! I said sit! The power in her words wasn't loud, didn't need to be. It simply was, an undeniable command that bypassed conscious thought and went straight to instinct. Garrett sat. Every wolf in the room felt it, the shift, the wrongness. Kael stood slowly from his throne. Serena, what are you doing? I heard you were planning my funeral. She walked into the center of the semicircle, boots clicking against marble. Thought I should attend. Save you all the trouble of dragging my body here later. Nobody's planning. Don't. She cut across Lord Garrett's protest. Elder Rothman was kind enough to warn me. The council has decided I'm an obstacle that needs removing. Quietly. Permanently. She turned to face each of them in turn, watching them avoid her eyes. You. She pointed at Lady Thorne. You suggested poison. Something slow. That would look like natural causes. Lady Thorne went white. And you? Lord Garrett this time. You preferred a convenient accident. Maybe a fall during one of my walks on the ramparts. How did you... Oh, and my personal favorite. She fixed her gaze on Duke Carrington. You wanted to make it look like suicide. The barren queen, so desperate and ashamed, takes her own life. Very theatrical. Silence. Absolute and damning. Cale's voice cut through it like a blade. Is this true? The council members exchanged glances. Finally, Lord Garrett spoke. The bloodline requires an heir, Your Majesty. 7 years is long enough to... To what? Cale's power rippled outward, alpha rage barely leashed. To plot my wife's murder behind my back? She's not really your wife, though, is she? Duke Carrington found his courage from somewhere suicidal. You've never claimed her, never bonded. For all intents and purposes, the queen is already... Careful. Serena's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. Finish that sentence and I'll show you exactly what this queen is. The temperature in the room plummeted. Frost began creeping across the marble floor, spreading outward from where Serena stood. What? Lady Thorne stumbled back. What is this? This, Serena said calmly, is what happens when you reject a Valcrest. She pulled back the sleeve of her black gown, revealing the glowing symbol on her wrist. Recognition flashed across Elder Rothman's face. Impossible. That bloodline was supposed to be dormant? Sealed? Serena smiled without humor. It was. For 7 years, while I played the dutiful, rejected wife, the seal held. But last night, my dear husband finally said out loud what you've all been thinking. I'm a mistake. An unwanted burden he's been too noble to discard. She looked at Kael, who stood frozen at his throne. And the moment those words left his mouth, the seal broke. So thank you, husband, for finally setting me free. The frost had reached the walls now, climbing upward in crystalline patterns. Lord Garrett drew his sword. This is dark magic. She's been corrupted. Put that away, Kael ordered, his voice tight. Before you do something even more stupid than usual. But, Your Majesty! I said put it away. Garrett lowered his blade, but kept it drawn. Serena laughed, cold and bitter. Oh, this is rich. Now you defend me? After 7 years of letting them tear me apart in public? Of standing silent while they called me barren, broken, useless? I didn't. You did. Through your silence, through your absence, through every single night you chose unconsciousness over acknowledging I existed. She took a step forward, and the ice beneath her feet cracked like thunder. You thought I was weak. All of you did. The rejected queen, too pathetic to fight back. Another step. But I was never weak. I was sleeping. And you just woke me up. The power erupted from her like a tidal wave. Silver light that slammed into every person in the room and drove them to their knees. Everyone except Kael. He stayed standing through sheer alpha will, but Serena could see the strain in his face, feel him fighting against the force of what she'd become. Kneel, she commanded softly. No. Kneel, or I'll make you. His legs shook, muscles locked in resistance. But slowly, inexorably, he went down, first one knee, then both. The Alpha King of Dravenor kneeling before his rejected queen. Serena looked down at him and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just empty recognition that the man she'd loved was nothing but a shell protecting a ghost. Here's what's going to happen, she announced to the room at large. The council will not be ordering my death, because as of this moment, I am removing myself from your jurisdiction. You can't, Lord Garrett wheezed. I can. I am. Watch me. She turned back to Kael. I, Queen Serena Valcrest, formally and publicly reject you as my mate. The words hit the room like a detonation. That's impossible, Elder Rothman gasped. Only the male can sever a mate bond. Under normal circumstances, yes. But I'm not normal anymore, am I? Serena felt the bond between them, frayed and neglected as it was, and grabbed hold of it with her newfound power. I reject your claim. I reject your bond. I reject everything you are. She pulled. The bond snapped. Kael screamed. It wasn't a sound Serena had ever heard from him, raw and agonized and utterly broken. He collapsed fully to the floor, hands clutching at his chest as if he could hold together what she'd just torn apart. Around the room, the council members cried out in sympathetic pain. Severing a mate bond sent shockwaves through every wolf nearby. But Serena felt only relief. The last thread connecting her to this place, these people, this nightmare, gone. She stood in the center of the council chamber, power radiating from her skin like corona fire, and addressed them one final time. I'm leaving. Tonight. And I'm taking the Valcrest Estates, the Northern Territories, and anyone loyal enough to follow a queen who actually has power. She looked down at Kael, still writhing on the floor. You wanted me gone? Congratulations. You got your wish. She turned to walk out. Wait. Kael's voice stopped her at the threshold, broken, desperate. Don't do this. Serena looked back. Why not? Because, he struggled to his feet, swaying. Because you're my mate. Was. Past tense. She smiled without warmth. You made very sure I understood that for 7 years. I'm just finally agreeing with you. Serena, please. Beg all you want. I spent 7 years begging for scraps of your attention, of your affection, of basic human decency. Her voice never rose above conversational. Somehow that made it worse. Now it's your turn. See how it feels. She walked out of the council chamber and didn't look back. Behind her, she heard Kael collapse again, heard the council erupt into chaos, heard the beginning of an ending, and kept walking. News of the severed bond spread through the castle like wildfire through dry brush. By the time Serena reached her chambers, half the servants had already packed their belongings. Not hers. Theirs. Getting out before the inevitable purge that followed royal scandal. Alara was still there, though, standing guard outside the door like a soldier at her post. They're saying you cursed the king, she said quietly, that you're possessed by dark spirits. They can say whatever helps them sleep at night. Serena pushed past her into the room. Start packing. We leave before dawn. We? Unless you'd rather stay here and serve whoever Kael marries next. Alara's jaw set. I'll get the trunks. Alone, Serena moved to the window and looked out over the castle grounds. Below, she could see guards assembling. Probably Kael's doing, making sure she didn't leave before he could, talk her out of it? Lock her up? Kill her properly this time? The door burst open without warning. She turned to find Commander Darius striding in, still in full armor, 3 guards at his back. Queen Serena Valcrest, by order of the Alpha King, you are hereby confined to your chambers until... The power lashed out before Serena consciously commanded it. All 4 men slammed against the wall, held in place by invisible force. Until what? Serena asked conversationally. Until he figures out how to spin this? Until the council decides whether I'm more useful alive or dead. Darius struggled against the hold, failed. This is treason. Treason implies I still recognize his authority over me. I don't. She walked closer, studying his face. Tell me something, Commander. In 7 years, did you ever wonder why your king couldn't stand to be near his own wife? That's not... Did you ever think maybe there was something wrong with a man who'd rather drug himself unconscious than spend one night with his mate? Darius said nothing, but something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, maybe, or recognition of a truth he'd been avoiding. You're loyal to him, Serena continued. I understand that, but loyalty to a broken man doesn't make you noble. It just makes you complicit. She released them. All 4 men crashed to the floor, gasping. Get out. Tell Kael I'll be gone by morning. If he tries to stop me, I'll bring this entire castle down around his ears. Darius pulled himself up, one hand on his sword hilt. He's still the Alpha King. And I'm still a Valcrest sovereign. Want to see which bloodline is stronger? The commander looked at her, really looked, and whatever he saw made him step back. Let's go, he told his men. They fled. Serena turned back to the window and watched the moon rise over distant mountains. Somewhere out there was the Valcrest stronghold, territory her family had held for generations before her mother married into the Dravenor line and moved to the capital. Abandoned now. Empty. But still hers by birthright. That's where she'd go, rebuild, gather strength. And when Kael finally came looking for her, because he would, she knew that with absolute certainty, she'd be ready. Your Majesty. A new voice. Male. unfamiliar. Serena spun to find a man standing in her doorway. Tall, lean, dressed in travel-worn clothes that marked him as nobility, playing at common. Silver hair, despite a face that couldn't be older than 40. Eyes like chips of amber. "Who are you?" "Lord Cassius Theron, from the Western Territories." He bowed, the gesture somehow mocking. "And I'm here to offer you an alliance you can't afford to refuse." Serena's hand moved instinctively toward the dagger at her hip, a habit from childhood her mother had insisted on. "How did you get past the guards?" "The same way I've gotten past every defense between here and the coast." Cassius straightened, his smile sharp. "I'm very good at not being seen when I don't want to be." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." He moved further into the room, uninvited, and Serena felt the power under her skin react, recognizing something. "I heard what you did in the council chamber. Impressive. Stupid, but impressive." "Get out." "In a moment. First, let me tell you what's about to happen." He leaned against her desk like he owned it. "Kael will spend tonight trying to figure out how to fix this. By tomorrow, he'll realize he can't. By the day after, he'll declare you a traitor and put a price on your head." He wouldn't. He absolutely would, because the alternative is admitting to his entire kingdom that he rejected his true mate so completely she severed the bond herself. That kind of weakness? Cassius shook his head. "No alpha survives it, so he'll make you the villain, paint you as corrupted, dangerous, a threat to the realm." Serena's stomach twisted because she knew he was right. "What do you want?" "To help you." "Why?" "Because I've spent 15 years watching Kael Dravenor consolidate power while the rest of us scramble for scraps. And I'm tired of it." His amber eyes glinted. "You want revenge? I want a kingdom that isn't run by one man's grief and guilt. Our interests align. You want to use me? I want to help you become what you were always meant to be. There's a difference." Cassius pushed away from the desk. "The Valcrest bloodline isn't just powerful, Serena. It's feared. When your great-great-grandmother ruled the Northern Territories, kingdoms fell at her feet. She didn't ask permission, didn't wait for councils to approve her decisions. She simply was. And how did that end for her? She died in her sleep at 93, surrounded by children and grandchildren who inherited an empire." He smiled. "Not every powerful woman meets a tragic end. Some of us just know better than to chain ourselves to men who don't deserve us." The words hit closer than Serena wanted to admit. "Even if I believed you," she said slowly, "what could you possibly offer that I need?" "Soldiers, resources, territory." Cassius ticked them off on his fingers. "The Western lords are tired of bowing to Dravenor. Give them an alternative, and they'll flock to your banner. Especially if that alternative is a Valcrest sovereign who just humiliated the Alpha King in front of his own council. You're talking about civil war. I'm talking about a kingdom ruled by someone who actually has power instead of just a title." He moved toward the door, then paused. "You have until dawn to decide. After that, I'm heading west with or without you. But I promise you this, stay here, and Kael will destroy you. Not because he wants to, because he has to. His throne depends on it." "And if I come with you?" "Then you become the threat he should have feared from the beginning." He disappeared into the hallway as silently as he'd arrived. Serena stood alone in her chambers, listening to the distant sound of guards shouting orders, and tried to figure out if she'd just been offered salvation or handed a prettier noose. The power under her skin pulsed, waiting, hungry for a decision. She thought about staying, facing whatever Kael had planned, maybe even trying to explain, to make him understand what he'd done to her. But 7 years of trying to make him see her had taught Serena one thing. You can't force someone to acknowledge your existence. You can only decide whether you're willing to keep begging for scraps. She was done begging. "Alara," she called. Her handmaiden appeared in the doorway, eyes red from crying. "Tell Lord Cassius I accept his offer. We leave in 2 hours." 2 hours? But that's all the time we have. Pack light. Only what we can carry on horseback. Alara nodded and disappeared to follow orders. Serena moved to her wardrobe and started pulling out clothes. Not the silk gowns and jeweled finery of a queen. Those belonged to a woman who no longer existed. Instead, she grabbed practical riding clothes. Boots. a cloak that wouldn't catch on branches. At the bottom of her trunk, wrapped in oilcloth, she found what she was looking for, her mother's dagger. The blade was old, plain, but sharp enough to draw blood with barely any pressure. Serena strapped it to her thigh and felt marginally less helpless. A knock at the door made her jump. "It's me," Elara said. "And someone else." The door opened to reveal not just her handmaiden, but 3 more women, kitchen staff, by their aprons. "Your Majesty," the oldest one said, curtsying awkwardly. "We heard you were leaving. We want to come with you." Serena blinked. "Why?" "Because you're the first queen who ever treated us like people instead of furniture." The woman, Martha, Serena remembered, met her eyes without flinching. "When my daughter got sick last winter, you paid for the healer. When Lord Garrett's son cornered me in the pantry, you made sure he was never allowed in the kitchens again. You think we don't remember that?" Serena didn't know what to say. It could be dangerous. Kale has never once looked at any of us. We're invisible to him, to all of them. Martha's jaw set. "But you saw us. So if you're leaving, we're coming." The other 2 women nodded. Serena felt something crack in her chest. Not breaking, opening. "All right, but move fast. We don't have much time." They scattered to gather their things. Within the hour, 7 more people had appeared at Serena's door. 2 stable boys, 3 guards who'd served under her father, a blacksmith's apprentice, a merchant's widow. All of them with the same story. Serena had shown them kindness in a place where kindness was currency most couldn't afford to spend. And now they were paying her back. By the time Cassius appeared at her door, there were 23 people crowded into the corridor outside her chambers. He took one look and laughed. "I said you'd need an army. Didn't expect you to start recruiting tonight." "I didn't recruit anyone. They volunteered." "Even better." He surveyed the group with an appraising eye. "Can they ride?" "Most of us," one of the guards, Marcus, spoke up. "The ones who can't can double up." "Good. We leave in 15 minutes. Anyone not ready gets left behind." People scattered like startled birds. Cassius turned to Serena. "You know this changes things, right? This many people, we can't use the aqueduct tunnels. Too slow. Too dangerous." "Then how do we get out?" "The main gate." "That's suicide. Darius has it locked down." "Darius has the south gate locked down. The east gate, the one that leads to the hunting grounds, is guarded by exactly 4 men. And one of them owes me money." Serena wanted to ask how he knew that, decided she didn't want to know. "What about horses?" "Already being saddled. I've got contacts in the stables." "You have contacts everywhere, don't you?" "That's how you survive in Kael's kingdom. Always have an exit strategy." He glanced at the people gathering in the hallway. "Though I'll admit, I didn't plan for this many." "Neither did I." "Oh, getting 23 people and 30 horses through a castle without being noticed should have been impossible. Somehow, they managed it." Cassius moved through the corridors like he'd memorized every guard rotation, every blind spot, every moment of shift change. The group followed in near silence, years of servant training making them experts at being invisible. They reached the east gate just past midnight. True to Cassius's word, only 4 guards stood watch. And when he approached the nearest one, a young man who went pale at the sight of him, and whispered something Serena couldn't hear, the guard simply nodded and unlocked the gate. "What did you tell him?" Serena asked as they led the horses through. "That his gambling debts were forgiven if he developed temporary blindness for the next 5 minutes." "And he believed you?" "I own the gambling hall he's indebted to, so yes." They were 100 yards from the castle when the alarm bells started ringing. "Ride!" Cassius shouted. The group kicked their horses into a gallop, thundering across the hunting grounds toward the tree line. Behind them, Serena heard shouting, the distinctive sound of the main gates being thrown open. They'd been discovered. The forest swallowed them in darkness and tangled branches. Serena ducked low over her horse's neck, trusting the animal to find its path. Around her she heard the others doing the same, gasping, cursing, praying to whatever forces might be listening. They rode for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes before Cassius called a halt in a small clearing. "Everyone here?" he demanded. A quick count confirmed all 23 had made it. "We can't stop for long," Marcus said, breathing hard. "They'll send trackers." "Let them." Cassius dismounted, checking his horse's hooves. We're heading into the Thornwood. No tracker in their right mind follows someone in there at night. The Thornwood? Alara's voice went high with fear. That's where bandits and worse things live. I know, Cassius remounted. It's also the fastest route west, and right now, fast matters more than safe. He's right, Serena said, even though the thought of entering the Thornwood made her skin crawl. We keep moving. They rode deeper into the forest, and with every mile the trees grew denser, older. The moonlight barely penetrated the canopy here, leaving them to navigate by feel and faith. Serena felt the power under her skin react to the Thornwood. There was old magic here, wild magic that had nothing to do with courts or councils or civilized wolves. It recognized her, called to her, and she wasn't sure if that was comforting or terrifying. Hold, Cassius said suddenly. The group stopped. What is it? Serena whispered. Someone's out there. She strained her ears and heard it. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving through the undergrowth with predatory intent. Bandits? Marcus drew his sword. Worse, Cassius said. Thornwood hunters. The trees around them erupted with movement. Figures dropped from branches, emerged from shadows, surrounded them in seconds. Not bandits. These people moved with too much coordination, too much purpose, and they were all armed. A woman stepped forward from the circle, tall, scarred, with gray-streaked hair and eyes like winter ice. Well, well, she said, her voice carrying easily across the clearing. What do we have here? A group of castle rats fleeing in the night. We're just passing through, Cassius said carefully. We don't want trouble. Trouble's already found you. This is our territory. You pay the toll or you don't leave. What's the toll? Everything you're carrying, horses, weapons, coin, and maybe, her gaze landed on Serena. We keep the pretty ones for leverage. The power surged in Serena's chest, responding to the threat. Touch any of them, she said quietly, and I'll make you wish you'd stayed hidden in your trees. The woman laughed. Big words from someone surrounded. Are they? Serena dismounted slowly. Let the power rise, let it show. Her skin began to glow with that same silver light from the council chamber. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds. Frost spread across the ground from where she stood. The Thornwood hunters stepped back. What are you? The woman breathed. Something you don't want to fight. Serena's voice carried harmonics that weren't quite human. I'm giving you one chance. Leave. Now. And you live to hunt another day. And if we don't? Then I'll show you exactly what happens when you threaten a Valcrest sovereign. The power exploded outward. Every tree within 50 feet cracked. The ground shook. Several of the hunters were thrown backward by the sheer force of it. When the light faded, Serena stood at the center of a circle of scorched earth. The woman who'd threatened them was on her knees, bleeding from her nose. We're leaving, Serena said. Anyone tries to follow us, and what I just did will feel like a gentle warning. She remounted her horse. The group rode past the stunned hunters without looking back. Only when they were a mile away did anyone speak. What the hell was that? Alara whispered. That, Cassius said, sounding impressed despite himself, was a queen remembering she has teeth. They rode through the night and into the next day, stopping only when the horses were ready to collapse. Cassius led them to a shepherd's cottage deep in the Thornwood, abandoned but still standing, barely. We rest here until nightfall, he announced. Then we push west to Theron Keep. People dismounted gratefully, too exhausted to do more than collapse where they stood. Serena helped Alara stable the horses, then sank down against the cottage wall. Every muscle ached. The power had drained her more than she'd expected. She felt hollowed out, fragile. You all right? Cassius crouched beside her, offering a water skin. No. Fair enough. He sat down next to her. For what it's worth, that was impressive back there. Terrifying, but impressive. I didn't know if it would work. The power, it's still new, unpredictable. You controlled it when it mattered. That's what counts. Serena took a long drink, then asked the question that had been eating at her since they left the castle. Why are you really helping me? Cassius was quiet for a moment. I had a sister, he said finally. Isabella. She was mated to one of Kael's generals. He treated her like property, beat her when she spoke out of turn, kept her locked in their estate like a prisoner. Serena's stomach turned. What happened to her? She tried to leave him. He dragged her back, killed her in front of his soldiers as a lesson about loyalty and obedience. Cassius's voice went flat. Kael knew. The whole court knew. Nobody did anything because the general was too valuable to punish. I'm sorry. I don't want your sympathy. I want your success. He looked at her directly. Because every day you survive, every day you grow stronger, is another day Kael realizes his carefully controlled kingdom is falling apart. And that's justice Isabella never got. Serena understood then. This wasn't just politics for Cassius. It was personal. I won't let you down, she said. I know. That's why I'm betting everything on you. Inside the cottage, someone had managed to start a fire. The smell of cooking food made Serena's stomach growl. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. Martha appeared with a bowl of something that might have been stew. It's not fancy, Your Majesty, but it's hot. It's perfect. Thank you. The older woman smiled and moved on to distribute food to the others. Serena ate mechanically, her mind elsewhere. Somewhere behind them, Kael was probably tearing his castle apart looking for her, probably blaming himself. Or maybe blaming her for everything. It didn't matter anymore. She'd made her choice. Walked away from a life that was killing her slowly. What came next was unknown, terrifying, but it was hers. They reached the Western Territories 4 days later, exhausted and half-starved despite Cassius's careful rationing. His holdings were more impressive than Serena had expected. A fortified manor house overlooking the gray coast, surrounded by villages that actually looked prosperous. Well-fed people, decent homes, fields planted and tended with care. Welcome to Theron Keep, Cassius said as they rode through the gates. Not as grand as Dravenor Castle, but it's honest work. Servants rushed out to meet them. News of their arrival had clearly preceded them. Serena saw recognition in their eyes when they looked at her. And something else. Fear? Respect? She couldn't tell. My lord, an older woman addressed Cassius with a bow. Rooms are prepared for your guests, and there are visitors in the Great Hall. Visitors? Lords from the Northern Territories, they arrived yesterday, said they needed to speak with the Valcrest sovereign. Cassius and Serena exchanged glances. How did they even know I'd be here? Serena asked. Because I sent word the moment you agreed to come west. He dismounted, tossing his reins to a stable boy. Time to see if your reputation precedes you. The Great Hall was smaller than Dravenor's, but warmer. Actual fires in the hearths instead of decorative cold stone. Tapestries depicting battles and hunts instead of formal portraits. And waiting near the central fire were 5 men. Serena recognized 2 of them, Lords Harkin and Voss, minor nobility from the northern reaches. The other 3 were strangers. One young, maybe mid-20s, with scars crossing his face, and the build of someone who'd earned his titles through combat, not inheritance. The others were older, weathered by years and hard living. Queen Serena, Lord Harkin bowed deeply. We came as soon as we heard. Heard what? That a Valcrest sovereign had risen, that the bloodline had awakened. He straightened, and his eyes burned with something almost religious. Our grandparents served under your great-grandmother. We've waited 3 generations for this. Serena felt suddenly off balance. I don't understand. The scarred young man stepped forward. I'm Commander Riker, leader of what's left of the Northern Guard. Soldiers who've been waiting for a Valcrest to return and reclaim the keeps. There are no keeps to reclaim. They've been abandoned for 30 years, since your mother married Kael's father and moved south. Riker's jaw set. But the people remember, we remember, and we've kept the fortresses standing, waiting. For what? For you. The words hit like a physical blow. One of the older men, Lord Brennan, Serena remembered from her mother's stories, stepped forward. The North has suffered under Dravenor rule, Your Majesty. Heavy taxes that drain us dry. Conscripted soldiers who never come home. Our resources stripped to fund the capital's excesses while our children go hungry. His voice shook with barely controlled rage. Your great-grandmother would never have allowed it. She protected her people, made the North strong. I'm not my great-grandmother. No, Brennan agreed. You're better because you've seen both sides. You know what Dravenor takes, what it costs. Lord Voss spoke up, his voice gravelly with age. We need you, Your Majesty. The people need you. Will you come north? Will you take back what's yours? Serena looked around the room at these men, strangers who'd pledged loyalty to a bloodline, not a person, who saw her as a symbol of something larger than herself. I need to think, she said. Think fast, Commander Riker replied, because Kale just declared you a traitor. There's a bounty on your head. 10,000 gold to whoever brings you back, dead or alive. The room went silent. When? Serena's voice came out steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. 2 days ago. Riders are spreading the word across the kingdom. Cassius cursed under his breath, faster than I expected. What did you expect? Serena rounded on him. You said he'd take time to explain. You said, I was wrong. Apparently he's decided to act first and explain never. Cassius's expression hardened, which means we're out of time for careful planning. You need to decide now, Serena. Stay here and hide, or go north and fight. Some choice. It's the only one you've got. She wanted to argue, to point out that she'd never asked for any of this, never wanted to be a symbol or a sovereign or anything except acknowledged by the man she'd loved. But wanting and having were different things. If I go north, she said slowly, what am I walking into? War, Riker said bluntly. Kael won't let you hold northern territory. He'll send his armies to drag you back. Can we win? If we're smart, if we move fast, if we can rally the common people before Kael's propaganda turns them against you. He paused. And if you're willing to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Serena thought about the Thornwood hunters on their knees, about the council chamber full of men who'd planned her murder, about Kael's face when she'd severed the bond. Something hardened inside her. All right, she said. We go north. But I'm not hiding behind armies or playing figurehead while men make decisions for me. If I'm doing this, I'm leading. Riker's scarred face split into a fierce grin. Yes, Your Majesty. Don't call me that, not yet. Serena met each man's eyes in turn. I'm not your queen. I'm not anyone's queen. But I am a Valcrest, and I'm done letting people underestimate what that means. Then what should we call you? Lord Harkin asked. Serena felt the power pulse under her skin, felt it settle into her bones like it had always belonged there. Sovereign, she said. Call me sovereign. The word echoed through the hall like a declaration of war. And somewhere, hundreds of miles away, Serena imagined Kael feeling the shift, feeling the moment his rejected mate stopped running and started hunting. Let him come, she thought. Let him send his armies. She'd be ready. Outside, thunder cracked across the sky. The storm had arrived, and Serena was standing right in its center, daring it to break her. The storm broke over Theron Keep 3 hours later with the kind of violence that felt personal. Serena stood at the window of her chambers, watching lightning tear the sky apart, and wondered if the weather was reacting to her or if she was just reading meaning into chaos. Behind her, Alara moved quietly around the room, unpacking what little they'd brought. You should rest, she caught herself. Sovereign. I can't. You haven't slept in 2 days. Sleep when you're this wired feels like a luxury I can't afford. Serena pressed her forehead against the cold glass. Kael's already declared me a traitor. By now, every bounty hunter and opportunist in the kingdom knows there's gold on my head. Then you're safe here. Lord Cassius won't let... Safe? Serena laughed, the sound harsh. Alara, there's no such thing as safe anymore. Not for me. A knock interrupted them. Cassius entered without waiting for permission, dripping wet from the rain. We have a problem. Just one? Funny. He wasn't smiling. Scouts just reported movement on the eastern road. Riders, maybe 50, maybe more. Moving fast this direction. Serena's stomach dropped. Kael's men? Don't know yet. Could be bounty hunters. Could be loyalists from the capital. Either way, they'll be here by morning. How did they track us this fast? Someone talked. Cassius's expression went cold. Probably one of the villages we passed through. 10,000 gold is enough to make anyone's memory sharp. Serena felt the power stir beneath her skin, responding to the threat. What do we do? We leave, tonight. Head north before they surround us. In this storm, the roads will be mud. The horses will survive or they won't. But staying here means getting trapped. He moved to her window, looking out at the rain-lashed darkness. Commander Riker and his men are already preparing. We ride in an hour. What about the people who followed me from the castle, Martha and the others? They come with us, all of them. Cassius turned to face her. You wanted to lead from the front? This is what that looks like. Making impossible choices and living with the consequences. He left before she could respond. Alara was already pulling out riding clothes. He's not wrong. I know. Then why do you look like you want to argue? Because I'm tired of running. Serena grabbed the clothes and started changing. 7 years, I ran from confrontation. Avoided conflict. Let people walk over me because fighting back seemed harder than just enduring. And now? Now I'm wondering if running is just another form of enduring. Alara helped her lace up the leather vest. You're thinking about fighting them. I'm thinking about making them regret coming after me. That's suicide. Maybe. Serena strapped her mother's dagger to her thigh. Or maybe it's the only way this stops. They need to learn I'm not prey. You're also not invincible. No, but I'm a lot harder to kill than I used to be. The Great Hall had transformed into a war room. Maps covered the long table. Riker and his officers stood around it, arguing in low, urgent voices. The Northern Lords clustered near the fire, looking grim. And Cassius stood apart from everyone, arms crossed, watching it all with calculating eyes. Serena entered and the room went quiet. Report, she said. Riker stepped forward. Scouts confirm 57 riders, all armed, moving in formation. Military, not mercenaries. They'll reach the keep by dawn. Whose colors? Dravenor, the king's personal guard. So Kyle had sent his best. That told her more than words could. This wasn't about bringing her back for trial or negotiation. This was about making her disappear. How many fighters do we have? Serena asked. 212. But most are farmers and craftsmen who volunteered. Good people, but not soldiers. Riker met her eyes. Against trained guards, we'd lose. Then we don't fight them head on. We run, Cassius said flatly. No. Serena moved to the table, studying the maps. We make them chase us somewhere that negates their advantage. Where? She traced a finger along the northern route. The Widow's Pass. Narrow canyon, steep walls. A dozen fighters could hold it against 100. Lord Voss shook his head. The pass is 2 days' hard ride from here. They'd catch us long before we reached it. Not if we split up. Serena looked around the room. The fighters, Riker's men, and anyone else with combat training, ride north with me. Fast and light. Everyone else goes west with Lord Cassius to the coast. We draw the guards after us while the civilians get to safety. You'll be outnumbered 3-1, Marcus said from the doorway. He'd been standing guard but apparently couldn't stay quiet. That's not tactics. That's suicide. It's buying time. Serena kept her voice level. The people who followed me from Dravenor did it because they trusted me. I won't let them die in a fight that's mine. It's not just yours anymore, Lord Harkin spoke up. The moment you accepted the title of sovereign, it became all of ours. Pretty words, but I'm the one with the bounty on my head. For now, Brennan said darkly. Once Kael realizes the North is rallying to you, every lord in this room will have a price on theirs too. The truth of that settled over the room like a shroud. Cassius broke the silence. If we're doing this insane thing, we need to move now. Every minute we waste is a minute closer they get. Agreed. Serena straightened. Riker, take your men and get ready to ride. Lord Cassius, you have the civilians. Get them to the coast and then to Valcrest Keep by whatever route keeps them alive. And you? I'll be leading the fighters north, like I said I would. You don't know the terrain. You've never fought a battle. You have power that can level buildings and break mate bonds. Her voice cut through his objections like a blade. I'll figure it out. Cassius stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. Don't get killed. I have too much invested in you. I'll try. The room exploded into motion. People running to gather weapons, supplies, horses. The organized chaos of preparation. Serena stood at the center of it and felt the weight of what she'd just committed to. Leading people into danger, possibly into death. This was what power meant. Not just strength, but responsibility for everyone who followed you into the dark. She just hoped she was strong enough to carry it. They rode out 30 minutes later into rain that felt like punishment. The group split at the crossroads, Cassius leading the larger, slower group west, while Serena and Riker's fighters turned north. Serena looked back once and saw Martha standing in the rain, watching her go. The older woman raised a hand in farewell or blessing. Then the darkness swallowed them, and there was only the sound of hooves and rain and her own racing heartbeat. They rode hard through the night. The storm made it nearly impossible to see more than a few feet ahead, but that worked in their favor. If they couldn't see, neither could anyone following. Riker rode beside Serena, occasionally shouting directions over the wind. "How far to the pass?" she called. "If we don't stop, 30 hours. Maybe less if we kill the horses. We'll stop when we have to." The men are already exhausted. So are Kale's guards. Everyone's operating on fumes. Serena wiped rain from her eyes. "The difference is we know where we're going." "You sure about that?" "Honestly? No, but admitting uncertainty now would be worse than pushing forward on faith and adrenaline." They stopped twice, once to rest the horses, once when a scout reported riders half a day behind them. 57 had become 73, reinforcements from somewhere. "They're gaining," Marcus said, breathing hard from his scouting run. "We need to move faster or find somewhere to make a stand." "The pass," Serena said. "We make our stand there. If we can reach it." They rode harder. Serena felt the exhaustion setting into her bones. The power helped. It seemed to flow through her in waves, keeping her alert when she should have been collapsing. But there was a cost. Every time she drew on it, something inside her changed, hardened. She was becoming less human and more something else. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like acceptance. Dawn broke over the mountains in shades of bruised purple and angry red, beautiful and violent at the same time. They'd been riding for 26 hours straight. Men were falling asleep in their saddles. Horses stumbled on terrain they should have navigated easily. "We need to stop," Riker said. "Just an hour. Let them rest." "We don't have an hour. We don't have men who can fight if they're unconscious." He was right. Serena hated it, but he was right. "Fine. 1 hour? No fires? Cold rations only." They stopped in a small valley, hidden from the main road by a stand of ancient pines. Serena dismounted and immediately felt her legs nearly give out. 30 straight hours of riding had left her barely functional. She found a rock and collapsed against it, too tired to care about dignity. Marcus appeared with the water skin and dried meat. "You need to eat." "Not hungry?" "Eat anyway. You're running on power and stubbornness. Eventually, both run out." She took the food because arguing required energy she didn't have. Around her, men dropped where they stood. Some managed to pull out bedrolls. Most just hit the ground and were asleep instantly. "They're good people," Marcus said quietly, settling beside her. "Scared, but good." "I know. Most of them have never been more than 20 miles from their homes. Now they're riding into a war they don't understand for a woman they barely know." "Is this supposed to make me feel better?" "It's supposed to make you understand what you've become to them. You're not just a leader, you're hope." Serena looked at him, really looked, saw the exhaustion in his face, the fear he was trying to hide. "You think I'm going to get them killed? I think you're going to try your hardest not to, but wanting something and achieving it are different things." "Why did you come then? If you think this is suicide?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Because 7 years ago my sister worked in the castle kitchens. Lord Garrett's nephew cornered her in the wine cellar. Would have raped her if you hadn't walked in. You screamed so loud half the castle came running. Made such a scene that the nephew couldn't deny what he'd tried to do." Serena remembered. Barely. It had been early in her marriage, when she'd still thought making noise mattered. "The king had him exiled," Marcus continued. "But everyone knew it was because you forced his hand. You made them see what they wanted to ignore." "I didn't do much." "You did enough." He stood, joints cracking. "My sister's alive and safe because you cared when no one else did. So yeah, I'm riding into possible death for you, because you earned it." He walked away before Serena could respond. She sat in the growing light and tried to process that. Tried to understand that the small moments, the ones she'd barely remembered, had mattered to people in ways she'd never known. Maybe that's what power really was. Not the flashy displays or the grand gestures, just seeing people when everyone else looked through them. They reached Widow's Pass just as dawn fully broke over the mountains. The canyon was everything Serena had hoped, narrow, steep-walled, with only one way in and one way out, a natural choke point. "Positions!" Riker barked. His men scrambled to obey, taking defensive positions along the canyon walls. Serena dismounted and studied the terrain with fresh eyes. The canyon was maybe 30 feet wide at the entrance, narrowing to 15 feet at its deepest point. The walls rose 50 feet on either side, high enough that climbing them under fire would be suicide. "Archers up top," she said, pointing to the ridge. "Anyone with a bow goes up there. Everyone else spreads along the canyon floor. Make them fight through a gauntlet." "What about you?" Riker asked. "I'll be at the entrance, where they can see me." "That's exactly where I need to be. I'm what they're coming for. Let's not make them search." Riker looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded and moved to position his men. Serena walked to the canyon entrance and stood in full view of the approaching path, waiting. The power pulsed under her skin, restless and hungry. It wanted to be used, wanted to prove itself. She forced it down, controlled. Not yet. Around her she could hear the fighters taking positions, the whisper of arrows being nocked, the quiet prayers of men preparing to die. "You should be up there," a voice said behind her. She turned to find one of Riker's youngest soldiers, couldn't be more than 16, standing 10 feet away. His hand shook on his spear. "What's your name?" Serena asked. "Thomas, Sovereign." "You scared, Thomas?" "Terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp, just don't let it freeze you." "What if I can't fight? What if I run?" "Then you run, and you survive, and you live with it." Serena moved closer. "No one expects you to be a hero. No one's keeping score. Just stay alive. That's all I ask." "What if they kill you?" The question was so blunt it made her laugh. "Then you run faster." Thomas smiled despite himself. "Yes, Sovereign." He moved to his position, looking marginally less terrified. Serena turned back to face the road and felt the weight of every life depending on her. This was the moment. The place where words became action, where theory met reality. She just hoped reality didn't crush her. Kael's guards appeared like ghosts out of the morning mist. 73 riders in perfect formation, moving with the kind of precision that came from years of training. At their head rode Commander Darius, the same man who'd tried to confine Serena to her chambers. He raised a hand and the formation stopped 50 yards from the canyon entrance. "Queen Serena Valcrest," his voice carried across the distance. "By order of Alpha King Kael Dravenor, you are commanded to surrender yourself for trial on charges of treason, use of dark magic, and abandonment of the crown." "I'm not your queen anymore," Serena called back, "and I don't answer to Kael's commands." "Then you'll be taken by force." "You can try." Darius's jaw tightened. "I have 73 trained soldiers. You have farmers and children playing at war. Surrender now and I'll guarantee safe passage for your followers." "Liar." The word came out cold, flat. "Kael sent you to kill me. Everyone knows it. This surrender offer is just theater, so you can sleep at night. Last chance, Your Majesty." "I'm not—" Serena stopped, took a breath. "You want me? Come and get me." Darius signaled. The formation began moving forward. Serena raised her hands and let the power rise. The ground beneath the advancing riders cracked. Not dramatically. She'd learned control since the council chamber. But enough. Fissures opened, forcing horses to veer left and right, breaking the tight formation into chaos. 3 riders went down when their horses stumbled. Not killed, just unhorsed. Serena was still trying to avoid killing, still clinging to that line. "Now!" Riker's shout echoed off the canyon walls. Arrows rained down from the defensive positions. Not many, they didn't have many archers, but enough to add to the confusion. A guard screamed as an arrow took him in the shoulder. Another's horse reared and threw him. The guards regrouped faster than Serena had hoped. Darius was screaming orders, pulling his men back into formation despite the impossible terrain. They'd done this before, fought in worse conditions. They were professionals. She hit them again, this time ice. The same power she'd used against the council, but more focused. The temperature dropped and the ground beneath the front line turned to glass, slick frost. Horses went down. Men crashed into each other. But they adapted. The rear ranks dismounted, advancing on foot where horses couldn't find purchase. Smart, disciplined, terrifying. Darius led a group of 20 directly at Serena, swords drawn, shields up, moving in tight formation. She stood her ground. At 10 yards, she released a carefully measured shockwave. The front line staggered, but didn't fall. Their shields took most of the impact. At 5 yards, she hit them harder. This time, several went down. But not all. Darius broke through, sword raised, moving with alpha-enhanced speed. Serena caught his blade with a barrier of pure force. The impact sent shockwaves up her arms. "You're making a mistake," Darius growled, pressing against the barrier. "No, I made a mistake 7 years ago when I married a man who'd rather drug himself than touch me. This?" She shoved back, sending him stumbling. "This is me fixing it!" More guards were trying to flank around the sides of the canyon. Riker's men held them off, but barely. The canyon was working as a choke point, but numbers were starting to tell. "Fall back," Riker shouted. "Controlled retreat to the second position." The fighters began pulling back deeper into the canyon. Serena held the entrance, throwing up barriers, creating obstacles, doing everything she could to slow the advance. But the power was draining faster than she'd expected. Each use took more from her than the last. Her vision started to blur at the edges. Not good. "Sovereign," Marcus appeared at her side. "You need to fall back." "Not yet. You're about to collapse." "I said not yet." And then she heard it, a sound that made her blood freeze. Howls. Coming from the north. Not wolves. Something bigger. Older. "What the hell is that?" Marcus shouted. Serena looked north and her heart stopped. Pouring over the ridge were creatures out of nightmare. Massive wolves, yes, but wrong. Too big, too fast, with eyes that glowed red and fur that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Shadow wolves. Ancient predators that hadn't been seen in the kingdom for over a century. And they were heading straight for the canyon. "Everyone inside!" Riker screamed from deeper in the canyon. "Get inside now!" The fighters scrambled back into the canyon's protection. Kael's guards saw the creatures and did the same, all hostility forgotten in the face of something that wanted to kill everyone equally. Darius ended up 10 feet from Serena, both of them staring at the approaching horde. "What did you do?" he breathed. "Nothing. I didn't—" But then she felt it, the pull. The shadow wolves weren't just attacking randomly. They were being drawn, called, by her power. The realization hit like a physical blow. The Valkrest bloodline didn't just give her strength, it marked her as something the old wild things recognized, responded to. And she'd just been throwing power around like fireworks, basically screaming her presence to every dangerous creature within 100 miles. "Fall back," she shouted. "Everyone fall back into the canyon." "They'll trap us," Darius argued. "Better trapped than eaten." The shadow wolves hit the mixed group of guards and fighters like a tsunami. Chaos became slaughter. Men screamed. Horses died. Blood turned the ground to mud. Serena acted on instinct, throwing up a barrier of pure force at the canyon entrance. The wolves slammed into it and rebounded, snarling. But the barrier was costing her. She could feel it draining the power reserves faster than she could replenish them. Her knees buckled. "I can't hold this forever," she gasped. Riker appeared at her side, sword drawn. "Then we fight." "Against those things? We'll be slaughtered." "Got a better idea?" She didn't. The barrier flickered. Once. Twice. The wolves sensed weakness and pressed harder, their eyes fixed on Serena with predatory intelligence. They knew what she was. Knew she was the source. And they wanted her. "Sovereign, you need to run," Darius said. For the first time since arriving, he sounded genuinely concerned. "Get out of here. We'll hold them as long as we can." "I'm not leaving my people." "They're not your people. They're farmers and craftsmen who are about to die because you're too stubborn to—" The barrier shattered. Shadow wolves poured through the gap. Serena threw up another barrier. Weaker this time, already failing. This was it. This was how she died. Torn apart by ancient predators she'd accidentally summoned. At least it would be quick. And then, impossibly, a new sound cut through the carnage. A howl. Different from the shadow wolves, pure, clear, alpha. Serena's head whipped around and she saw him, Kael. Standing on the ridge where the shadow wolves had appeared, in full alpha form, massive, silver-furred, radiating power that made the air shimmer around him. And he was fighting the creatures, alone. "What is he doing?" Marcus breathed. "Saving us," Serena whispered, "or proving a point. Maybe both." Kale tore through the shadow wolves with brutal efficiency, every move calculated, every strike lethal. His claws ripped through corrupted flesh like it was paper, his jaws crushed bone. But there were too many. Even as he killed 3, 4 more appeared. They were wearing him down. Serena could see it in the way his movements slowed fractionally, in the wounds accumulating across his body. He was going to die. "He's going to die," Darius said, voicing her thoughts. He sounded horrified, lost. Serena made a decision she'd regret or celebrate later. She dropped the barrier. "What are you—" Riker started, but she was already running. Out of the canyon. Toward Kael. Toward the shadow wolves and certain death. The power exploded from her in waves. Not controlled blast this time, but raw force that cleared a path through the creatures. She reached Kael's side just as 3 wolves lunged at his exposed flank. Serena caught them midair with her power and slammed them into the ground hard enough to crack stone. Kael shifted back to human form, naked and bleeding from a dozen wounds. His chest heaved with exhaustion. "You're an idiot," he gasped. "You're welcome. I didn't come here to save you." "Could have fooled me." A shadow wolf leaped between them. They both hit it from opposite sides, his claws reforming just long enough to tear, her power crushing, and it disintegrated into black smoke. "Why are you here?" Serena demanded, throwing up another barrier as more wolves charged. "Because you're still my mate. I severed the bond. Bonds don't break that easily." He was fighting beside her now, both of them back to back against impossible odds. "You think I'd let you die out here because of some stupid declaration? It wasn't stupid. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen anyone do. You rejected me first." A wolf got through their defenses. Kael took it down, but took a savage wound to his shoulder in the process. Serena felt his pain through a bond that shouldn't exist anymore, but it did. Frayed and damaged and furious, but still there. Thinner than spider silk, stronger than steel. "This is a terrible time for a relationship discussion," she shouted, obliterating 2 more wolves. "When's a good time? You keep running away." "Because you're impossible." "I'm impossible? You severed our bond in front of the entire council. You drove me to it." They were going to die screaming at each other. The thought was absurd enough to make Serena laugh. A wild, slightly unhinged sound. And in that laugh, something shifted. The power that had been fighting to stay contained, to stay controlled, to stay civilized. It recognized something. The bond. The connection to Kael that she'd tried to sever but hadn't quite managed. It flowed into that connection. Through it. And Kael's alpha power flowed back. 2 bloodlines, 2 ancient sources of strength. Mixing, amplifying. Serena felt it hit her system like lightning. Kael's eyes went wide. "What?" "Don't fight it," she said. "Just—" The power exploded outward from both of them simultaneously. Silver light met alpha force in a detonation that shook the mountains. Every shadow wolf within 100 yards simply ceased to exist, erased from reality. The ones further out turned and ran, sensing something worse than themselves. Something that shouldn't be possible. When the light faded, Serena was on her knees, gasping. Kael had collapsed beside her, still bleeding but alive. And all around them was silence, broken only by the sound of their ragged breathing. "What?" he said slowly. "The hell was that?" "That," Serena wheezed, "was what happens when you put 2 impossible things in the same place and tell them to survive." She looked at him, really looked, saw the man beneath the alpha, beneath the king, beneath all the grief and guilt he'd been drowning in, saw him seeing her for the first time in 7 years. "You came," she said quietly. "Of course I came. You think I'd let some shadow wolves kill the most infuriating woman I've ever met? You sent guards to drag me back. I sent guards to protect you. Darius had orders to bring you home safe, not harm you." Kael struggled to sit up, wincing. "The bounty was fake, a way to track who'd betray the crown by trying to collect." Serena blinked. "What? You really think I'd put a price on your head? After everything? You declared me a traitor. I declared you missing and possibly in danger. The council twisted it. He met her eyes. I've been tracking you since you left, trying to reach you before something like this happened. You're lying. I'm really not. She wanted to call him out, to point out all the ways this didn't make sense. But then she remembered. He'd come alone, fought shadow wolves alone, nearly died alone. That wasn't the behavior of someone trying to capture her. That was the behavior of someone trying to save her. I hate you, she said. I know. You made my life a living hell for 7 years. I know that too. And now you show up and suddenly you care? After I've finally gotten strong enough to leave? Kyle was quiet for a long moment. Then, I've always cared. I was just too broken to show it. That's not good enough. I know, but it's the truth. He tried to stand, failed, settled for leaning against a rock. Lissa's been dead for 10 years, and I've spent every single day since then drowning in guilt. You looked like her, sounded like her, and every time I looked at you, I saw the woman I failed to save. So you punished me for it. Yes, and I'm sorrier than I know how to say. Serena felt tears sting her eyes, refused to let them fall. Sorry doesn't fix 7 years of rejection. No, it doesn't. Nothing fixes that. Kale's voice went rough. But maybe, if you're willing, we could try something new, start over, as equals instead of king and rejected queen. I'm not coming back to the capital. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking if there's any world where we could try again, differently. Serena looked at the canyon entrance, at the fighters and guards who'd stopped trying to kill each other and were now just staring at the carnage in shock. Looked at Riker, who gave her a small nod. Looked at the northern mountains, where Valcrest Keep waited. I don't know, she said honestly. I don't know if I can forgive you. Don't know if we can fix what's broken. Don't even know if I want to try. That's fair. But I'm not running anymore, and I'm not hiding. So if you want to try, if you actually mean it, then you're going to have to prove it, not with words, with action. What kind of action? Serena stood on shaking legs. Help me take back the North. Help me build something that isn't based on one man's grief. Help me become what I was always supposed to be. A sovereign, yes. Kale struggled to his feet, using the rock for support. You know the council will fight this. They'll see it as rebellion. Let them. It could mean civil war. I know. We could lose everything. Serena smiled, sharp and dangerous. Or we could win everything. Guess we'll find out. She held out her hand. Kale stared at it for a long moment. Then he took it. The bond flared to life between them. Not healed, not whole, but present. Real. And this time neither of them flinched away. The silence after the shadow wolves fled felt heavier than the battle itself. Serena stood with Kael's hand still in hers, both of them swaying on their feet, and tried to process what had just happened. Around them, guards and fighters alike stared with expressions ranging from awe to outright terror. Darius was the first to move. He sheathed his sword and approached slowly, like he was dealing with wild animals that might spook. Your Majesty, he addressed Kael, then hesitated. Your sovereigns? Just Kael is fine right now, Kael said. He sounded exhausted. And before you ask, no, I don't know what that was either. The power, Serena said quietly. It merged. Valcrest and Dravenor bloodlines flowing through the bond. I thought you severed the bond. I tried. Apparently I didn't do a very good job. She looked at Kael. Or maybe some bonds are too stubborn to break completely. Like the people in them, he muttered. Riker pushed through the crowd of stunned fighters. Sovereign, we need to move. The wolves might come back and half our men are wounded. He was right. Now that the adrenaline was fading, Serena could see the casualties. 5 dead that she could count. At least a dozen seriously wounded. And those were just her people. Kael's guards had taken losses too. Commander Darius, Kael said, pulling himself straighter despite the blood still dripping from his shoulder. Your men are released from their mission. Anyone who wants to return to the capital is free to go. Darius blinked. Sire? You heard me. I came here to talk to my wife, not wage war. Whatever happens next is between her and me. The council can wait. Kael's voice carried alpha authority that made even Serena's spine straighten reflexively. I'm still king. They'll do what I tell them or find themselves replaced. Several guards exchanged glances. None of them moved to leave. "We're staying," one of them said. Young, maybe 25. "If the king's here, we're here." "That's not necessary." "With respect, Your Majesty, yes it is." The guard gestured at the carnage around them. "Something's happening, something bigger than politics or council games, and we'd rather be here for it than back in the capital pretending everything's normal." Kale looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he just nodded. "Fine. But you follow Commander Darius's orders, not mine. I'm here as Serena's... What am I? Exactly?" He looked at her. Serena felt dozens of eyes watching, waiting for her answer. "Allie," she said carefully. "For now. I'll take it." Riker cleared his throat. "Touching, but we still need to move. There's a village 3 hours north. They're loyal to Valcrest. We can rest there." "Lead the way," Serena said. The combined group, fighters, guards, wounded, and confused, began the slow process of gathering the dead and preparing to move. Serena helped where she could, but exhaustion was setting in hard. Every movement felt like dragging herself through mud. Marcus appeared with a cloak and draped it over her shoulders. "You're shaking." "Just tired." "You're about to collapse. There's a difference." "I'm fine." "Sovereign." His voice went firm. "You just fought off 70 guards, held back shadow wolves, and did something with the king that made the mountains shake. You're allowed to not be fine." Serena wanted to argue, but her legs chose that moment to give out. Marcus caught her before she hit the ground. "Someone get a horse!" "I can walk." "No, you can't. Stop being stubborn and let people help." She was too tired to fight. Let herself be lifted onto a horse, propped up by Marcus riding behind her. The world swam in and out of focus. Distantly, she heard Kyle arguing with someone, heard Riker snapping orders, heard the sound of the column beginning to move. Then darkness pulled her under. When she woke, it was to the smell of wood smoke and herbs. She was lying on something soft. A bed, she realized. Real bed with actual blankets. Not the ground, or a bedroll, or a pile of straw. "Easy," a woman's voice said. "You're safe. Don't try to sit up yet." Serena ignored the advice and sat up anyway. Her head spun, but stayed attached. She was in a small room, stone walls, a single window showing twilight sky. And sitting beside the bed was an older woman with gray-streaked hair and the weathered face of someone who'd spent their life working outdoors. "Where am I?" "North Haven Village. You've been asleep for 6 hours." The woman held out a cup. "Drink this. It'll help with the shaking." Serena took the cup and sniffed cautiously. Some kind of tea. Smelled like mint and something earthier. She drank. It was good. Warm and soothing and exactly what her battered body needed. "Thank you. You are..." "Mara, village healer. Your Commander Riker brought you in looking half dead and told me to fix you." A slight smile. "Didn't realize I'd be treating a Valcrest sovereign. My grandmother served your great-grandmother. Said she was the best leader the North ever had." "I'm not her." "No, you're you. Might be better." Mara stood, checking Serena's pulse with practiced efficiency. "The king's been asking about you. Wouldn't leave until I threatened to sedate him, too." "Where is he?" "Common room. Arguing with your northern lords about something. Politics, probably." She finished her examination. "You're dehydrated and exhausted, but otherwise fine. The power you used, it takes a toll. You need to be careful or it'll burn you out from the inside." "How do you know about the power?" "Because I'm old enough to remember the stories. Old enough to know what a Valcrest sovereign looks like when she's pushed too far." Mara moved to the door. "Rest another hour, then you can go argue politics with the men who think they know better." She left. Serena lay back against the pillows and stared at the ceiling. 6 hours. She'd lost 6 hours. Anything could have happened in that time. Kale could have changed his mind. The council could have sent more troops. The alliance she'd barely started building could have collapsed. But worrying about it wouldn't change anything. She forced herself to rest for another 20 minutes. Then she got up, found her boots, and went to face whatever chaos waited. The common room was packed. Riker and his officers clustered around one table, studying maps. The Northern Lords occupied another, deep in heated discussion. Kael's guards had claimed the corner near the fire, looking distinctly uncomfortable in civilian clothes someone had found for them. And standing near the hearth, arguing with Lord Harkin, was Kael. still shirtless because his clothes had been shredded in the fight. Someone had bandaged his worst wounds, but he looked like he'd gone 3 rounds with a bear and barely won. He saw her enter and broke off mid-sentence. The room went quiet. "You're awake," he said. "Apparently." Serena crossed to the nearest table and sat before her legs could betray her. "What did I miss?" "Everything," Lord Brennan said dryly. "The king has been making interesting proposals." "Such as?" Kale moved closer. "I'm offering the North autonomy, limited self-governance under a Valcrest sovereign, with the understanding that you're still technically part of the kingdom." Serena stared at him. "You're what?" "You wanted to rebuild the North, make it strong again. I'm saying yes. Do it." He leaned against the table. "In exchange, you provide military support if the kingdom is threatened by outside forces, and you don't try to secede completely. The council will never agree to that." "The council doesn't get a vote. I'm the king. This is my decision." Lord Voss shook his head. "It's a trap. Has to be. No ruler gives up that kind of power without a reason." "The reason is I'm tired," Kyle said bluntly. "Tired of fighting the same battles my father fought. Tired of trying to control territory that doesn't want to be controlled. Tired of draining the North dry to fund the capital's excesses." He looked at Serena. "You were right. About all of it. The system's broken. Has been for decades. Maybe longer. So you're just giving up?" "I'm choosing different battles. The Western lords are already restless. The Southern territories are barely holding together. I need allies, not conquered subjects who hate me." It made a terrible kind of sense. Serena looked around the room at the faces watching her. "What do the Northern lords think?" Lord Harkin spoke first. "I think it's the best offer we're likely to get, but I also think we need guarantees, written agreements, something that can't be undone the moment the political winds shift." "Agreed," Brennan said. "And we want control of our own taxes. No more sending gold south while our children go hungry." "Done," Kyle said immediately. "And military conscription ends. No more taking our sons to fight your wars." Also done. "Though I'd like to establish a mutual defense pact. If either of us is attacked, the other provides aid." The lords exchanged glances. Riker leaned forward. "What about existing Dravenor fortifications in the north? Do they stay or go?" "Depends. Are they being used to oppress your people or defend them?" "Both, usually. Then they stay, but control transfers to Valcrest forces. My soldiers withdraw south of the Grey March River." Kale straightened. "I'm not trying to trick you. I'm trying to fix something I should have addressed years ago." Serena felt like she was watching a kingdom reshape itself in real time. "Why now?" she asked quietly. "Why offer this now instead of 7 years ago?" Kale met her eyes. "Because 7 years ago I was too busy drowning to see what needed to be done, and because you weren't ready to lead yet." "You don't know what I was ready for." "No, but I know what you've become. And that woman?" He gestured at her. "She doesn't need my permission or my authority. She'll take what she wants with or without me. I'm just choosing to work with her instead of against her. Pragmatic. I like to think I learn from my mistakes. Eventually." Lord Voss cleared his throat. "Assuming we agree to this, and that's still an if, what happens to you, Sovereign? Do you stay in the north? Return to the capital? Where do you fit in this new structure?" "Good question." Serena looked at Kyle, who said nothing. This was her choice. "I stay north," she said. "Valcrest Keep becomes the seat of northern governance. I rebuild what was lost. And I rule as sovereign, not as queen." "What about the mate bond?" Brennan asked bluntly. "You severed it, or tried to. What's the status there?" "Complicated," Serena said. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." She stood, ignoring the way the room tilted slightly. "The bond exists. It's damaged. Whether it can be repaired or if we even want to try, that's between Kyle and me. It doesn't affect governance. It affects succession," Harkin pointed out. "If you have children with the king, then we'll deal with it when it happens. If it happens." Serena cut across the speculation. "Right now, I'm more concerned with making sure the North survives the next 6 months than planning dynasties." That seemed to satisfy most of them. Riker stood. "I'll draw up patrol schedules for Valcrest Keep. We'll need to secure the territory before word of this spreads." "I'll help," Darius said, surprising everyone. "My men know Dravenor tactics. We can identify weak points in the northern defenses. You're staying? Kael asked. You're here, we're here. That's how it works. Darius shrugged. Besides, this is more interesting than garrison duty in the capital. The room dissolved into planning, people arguing over details, drawing maps, making lists. Serena let it wash over her and tried to process the magnitude of what was happening. The North was free, or as close to free as it could be while still technically part of the kingdom, and she was responsible for making it work. The weight of that settled on her shoulders like a physical thing. Kael appeared beside her, holding 2 cups of something that smelled like wine. You look overwhelmed, he said, offering her a cup. I am overwhelmed. This is insane, Welcome to leadership. It's mostly insane decisions and hoping they work out. Serena took a long drink. The wine was rough, but effective. You really think this can work? The council's going to lose their minds. Probably. I'll deal with them. And if they try to overrule you? Then I'll remind them that an Alpha King doesn't ask permission. He drank from his own cup. I've been too passive. Let them make decisions that should have been mine. That ends now. You sound different. Fighting shadow wolves while watching your mate nearly die has a way of clarifying priorities. I'm not your mate. Not really. Not anymore. Kael was quiet for a moment. The bond says otherwise. The bond is broken. Damaged, not broken. There's a difference. Serena wanted to argue, but she could feel it too, that thread connecting them, thin and frayed but present. I don't know how to fix us, she said quietly. Neither do I, but maybe we don't need to fix what was. Maybe we build something new. That's a nice thought, doesn't make it possible. No, but it makes it worth trying. Before Serena could respond, Marcus rushed in from outside. Sovereign, riders approaching from the south. A lot of them. The room went silent. How many? Riker demanded. At least 300 flying Dravenor colors. Everyone looked at Kael. He set down his cup carefully. I didn't call for reinforcements. Then who did? The council, Darius said grimly. They must have sent troops when you didn't return on schedule. How far out? Kael asked. Maybe an hour. They're moving fast. Riker was already moving toward the door. We can't fight 300 trained soldiers. We need to evacuate. No, Serena said. Everyone stopped. No? Riker stared at her. Sovereign, we're outnumbered and exhausted. This isn't a fight we can win. Then we don't fight. We talk. They're not coming to talk. They're coming to drag you back, or kill you if you resist. Let them try. Kael moved between her and the door. What are you planning? I'm planning to show the council exactly what happens when they send armies to threaten a Valkrest sovereign in her own territory. That sounds like a fight. No, it sounds like a demonstration. Serena looked around the room. Everyone who can stand outside. Everyone who can't, stay here and look after the wounded. We're going to give these soldiers something to take back to the capital. Which is what, exactly? Lord Voss asked. Serena smiled. It wasn't a kind expression. A reason to be very, very afraid. The village of North Haven sat in a valley surrounded by hills. Good defensive position normally. Right now, it made them sitting targets. Serena stood at the edge of the village with Riker on one side and Kael on the other. Behind them, every fighter who could still stand had assembled, maybe 150 people total, against 300. This is suicide, Riker muttered. Have a little faith, Serena said. Faith doesn't stop arrows. No, but power does. The Dravenor army appeared over the southern ridge right on schedule. 300 soldiers in perfect formation, moving with the kind of precision that came from serious training. At their head rode a man Serena recognized from court, Lord Garrett, the same councilman who'd argued for her death in that meeting that felt like a lifetime ago. Queen Serena, his voice carried across the valley. By order of the High Council, you are commanded to release the king and surrender yourself for judgment. Kael stepped forward. I'm not being held, Garrett. I'm here by choice. The council believes you've been compromised, Your Majesty. Influenced by dark magic. We're here to ensure your safety. My safety. Kael's laugh was harsh. Is that what we're calling a coup these days? This is no coup. This is loyal subjects protecting their king from a dangerous traitor. The only traitor I see is the council member who sent troops against his king's explicit wishes, Kael shot back. Turn around and go home, Garrett, before this becomes something no one can walk back from. We have our orders. The queen comes with us. Peacefully or otherwise. Serena had heard enough. She stepped forward and immediately felt the power respond, rising, eager. Tell the council, she said, her voice carrying with unnatural clarity, that I'm not their queen, I'm not their subject, I'm not their concern. You're a traitor to the crown. I'm a Valcrest sovereign, and you're standing in my territory without permission. Garrett's expression hardened. Take her. The army began advancing. Serena raised her hands and let the power loose. Not violently, not lashing out with intent to kill, just showing them what she was. The temperature dropped 30 degrees in seconds. Frost spread across the ground in intricate patterns. The sky darkened as clouds rolled in from nowhere. And around Serena, the air began to shimmer with that silver light that marked her bloodline. The advancing army stopped. Keep moving, Garrett shouted. The soldiers took another step, then another. Serena increased the pressure. The ground trembled. Cracks appeared in the earth. The wind picked up, howling through the valley with voices that sounded almost human. Still, the army advanced, disciplined, professional. She admired their courage even as she prepared to break it. Last chance, she called. Turn back now or I'll show you exactly what a sovereign can do when you threaten her people. She's bluffing, Garrett yelled. Keep... Serena pulled on the bond with Kael. He gasped beside her as his alpha power flowed into her, mixing with Valcrest magic in that same devastating combination they'd discovered during the Shadow Wolf attack. But this time, she had control. The power erupted from her in a visible wave, silver and gold light mixing, spreading outward in an expanding circle. Every soldier it touched dropped to their knees, not forced, not compelled, just overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what they were facing. Even Garrett went down, his expression shifting from arrogance to stark terror. I am Serena Valcrest. Her voice resonated with power, echoing off the hills. Daughter of the Northern Territories, heir to a bloodline that ruled these lands when your ancestors were still learning to hunt. And I am telling you, all of you, that this territory is mine. Not the council's, not the crown's. Mine. She let them feel the weight of that. Let them understand exactly what they'd marched against. You have 1 hour to leave my lands. Anyone still here after that will be considered an invader, and I will treat you accordingly. The wave of power receded. 300 soldiers struggled to their feet, looking shaken, broken. Garrett tried to rally them. We have orders. We can't just... Then die following them, Serena said flatly. I don't care which you choose. Kael stepped up beside her. Even without his crown, even shirtless and bandaged, he radiated authority. The sovereign has spoken, he said, and I, as your king, am telling you the same thing. Leave. Now. This isn't a fight you can win. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then one soldier, young, couldn't be more than 20, turned his horse around and started riding south. Then another. Within minutes, the entire army was retreating. Even Garrett, still shouting about orders and duty, was being pulled away by his own men who decided survival mattered more than politics. Serena watched them go and felt something like relief. She hadn't wanted to kill them, hadn't wanted that blood on her hands, but she would have if they'd pushed. That, Riker said quietly, was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. Good, Serena said. Maybe now people will think twice before coming after us. Kael was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You've gotten stronger, a lot stronger. I've had practice. That wasn't just practice. That was... He trailed off. What you did to the bond. The way you pulled on my power. Can you do that any time? I don't know. Maybe. We're still connected, whether I wanted us to be or not. And you just proved to 300 witnesses that we're more dangerous together than apart. Is that a problem? For the council? Definitely. For us? He smiled slightly. Might be the only thing that keeps this fragile alliance alive. Around them, the fighters were celebrating, cheering, the impossible victory over overwhelming odds. Serena let herself feel it for a moment. The triumph, the relief, the recognition that she'd just changed the balance of power in the entire kingdom. Then exhaustion hit her like a hammer. Her legs gave out. Kale caught her before she hit the ground. I've got you. I'm fine. You're exhausted. Again, stop trying to be invincible. If I stop being invincible, people might realize I have no idea what I'm doing. Everyone already knows that. They're following you anyway. He carried her back toward the village. Serena wanted to protest, but she was too tired to make it convincing. Behind them, she heard Lord Harkin's voice. Well, I'd say that settles the question of whether the North can defend itself. Indeed, Brennan replied, though I suspect we just made the Council our enemy for life. Better an honest enemy than a false friend. Serena smiled against Kale's shoulder. The North had its freedom, she had her power, and for the first time in 7 years she had allies who actually wanted her to succeed. It wasn't perfect, nothing about this situation was perfect, but it was hers, and she'd tear apart anyone who tried to take it away. 3 weeks after the Council's army retreated, Serena stood on the battlements of Valcrest Keep and watched the sun rise over territory that was finally, truly hers. The keep had been a ruin when they had arrived. 30 years of abandonment had left it barely standing, collapsed roofs, crumbling walls, rooms full of debris and ghosts. But the bones were good, strong, and the people who'd followed her north had worked like their lives depended on it to make it livable again. Because maybe their lives did depend on it. You're up early. She didn't turn, knew Kael's footsteps by now. Couldn't sleep. Still having the dreams? Every night. Dreams of the council chamber, of Kael's face when she'd severed the bond, of shadow wolves and blood and 300 soldiers kneeling in terror. You? Same. Though mine usually involve you dying in increasingly creative ways while I watch. He came to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. My subconscious is very imaginative about worst-case scenarios. Charming. They stood in silence for a while, watching the northern territories wake up. Smoke rising from chimneys in the valley villages, farmers heading to fields, the ordinary rhythm of life continuing despite the political earthquake still reverberating through the kingdom. The council sent another messenger yesterday, Kael said finally, while you were meeting with the grain distributors. What did they want this time? My immediate return to the capital, alone, for urgent discussions regarding the northern situation. Serena's hands clenched on the stone parapet. They're not going to stop. No, they're terrified. A sovereign they can't control, allied with a king they thought they had leashed. It's their nightmare scenario. So what did you tell the messenger? That I'd return when I was ready. Not before. Kael glanced at her. They threatened to declare me unfit to rule, call a vote of no confidence. Can they do that? Technically, yes. Practically, it would trigger a civil war that would tear the kingdom apart. He smiled without humor. Which is probably why they haven't actually done it yet. Just keep threatening. You should go back, Serena said quietly, before this gets worse. And leave you here alone? I'm not alone. I have Riker, the Northern Lords, 200 fighters who've decided I'm worth following. Against a council that wants you dead and a kingdom that doesn't know what to make of you? Kael shook his head. Not happening. Kael, no. We've been over this. I'm staying until you're established enough that the council can't just send another army the moment I turn my back. They'd been having this argument on and off for 3 weeks, Serena wanting him gone before his absence destabilized the capital. Kael refusing to leave before the North was secure, neither of them budging. You're impossible, she muttered. You've mentioned that several times. And you're jeopardizing your crown for territory you already admitted you couldn't control. I'm securing an alliance with the most powerful force in the kingdom. That's not jeopardizing, that's strategy. Is that all this is? Strategy? The question came out before Serena could stop it. Kael went very still. What do you want me to say? I want you to be honest. Are you staying because it's politically smart or because... She trailed off, couldn't quite finish. Because I'm trying to fix what I broke? He turned to face her fully. Both. It's both. I need this alliance for the kingdom, but I also need to prove to you that I'm not the same broken man who rejected you for 7 years. You can't fix 7 years in 3 weeks. I know, but I can start. His hand moved to cover hers on the stone. And I can be here, actually present, actually seeing you instead of looking through you at a ghost. Serena looked down at their hands. The bond between them pulsed, stronger now than it had been at Widow's Pass. but still damaged, still uncertain. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said quietly. "I know. I don't know if I even want to try." "I know that too." "Then why are you still here?" Cale was quiet for a long moment. "Because you're the only thing in my life that feels real. Everything else, the crown, the council, the politics, it's all theater, performance. But you, what we have, damaged as it is the only honest thing I've got left." That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you spent 7 years avoiding. "Yeah, it is. I'm working on being less of a disaster." Despite herself, Serena laughed. "How's that going?" "Terribly. But I'm very persistent." A bell rang from the courtyard below, the signal for the morning council meeting. Serena had instituted them a week ago, bringing together the Northern Lords, Riker's officers, and representatives from the major villages to discuss governance. Democracy was messy, but it beat the alternative. "We should go," she said. "Probably. Though I'm betting Lord Voss is going to argue about trade tariffs again." "He argues about trade tariffs every meeting." "Exactly. It's getting predictable." They headed down from the battlements together, and Serena tried not to think too hard about how natural it had become to have Kyle beside her, how easily they'd fallen into a rhythm of partnership despite everything. Trust, she reminded herself, took time. Forgiveness took longer, and she wasn't ready to give him either yet. The council chamber, really just the old great hall with a table shoved in it, was already full when they arrived. The Northern Lords clustered on one side, Riker and his officers on the other, village representatives scattered throughout, and standing near the fireplace, looking uncomfortable in formal robes, was Cassius. He'd arrived 2 days ago from the coast with 50 more volunteers and enough supplies to keep the keep fed through winter. "You're late," he said. "We're exactly on time," Serena replied. "You're just early because you like complaining. Someone has to keep you humble." She took her seat at the head of the table. Kyle sat to her right, a position that had caused some initial grumbling until she'd made it clear that he was there as her ally, not as king. "Reports," she said. "Food stores first." Martha, who'd taken on managing supplies, stood. "We've got enough grain to last through winter if we're careful. Vegetables are good. Meat's tight but manageable if the hunting parties keep their current pace." "Defenses?" Serena looked to Riker. "North wall's reinforced. Southgate needs another week of work, but it'll hold against anything short of siege engines. Patrols are running regular routes to all the border villages." "Any signs of trouble?" "Not from the south, but we've had reports of increased bandit activity near the eastern border. Nothing we can't handle, but it's worth watching." Lord Harkin cleared his throat. "About the eastern border? We've received a request from Lord Thayer. He wants to join the Northern Alliance." Serena sat up straighter. Thayer controlled significant territory along the coast. Having him join would almost double their effective borders. "What's his reasoning?" she asked. "Same as the rest of us. He's tired of the council bleeding his lands dry to fund the capital. And after hearing what happened with the army," Harkin smiled slightly, "he's decided aligning with a sovereign is safer than staying neutral." "It's a trap," Lord Voss said immediately. "Thayer's been a council loyalist for decades. This is them trying to plant a spy in our midst. Or it's a genuinely disaffected lord who's seen which way the wind is blowing," Cassius countered. "Not everyone's playing political chess, Voss. Everyone's playing political chess, some just hide it better." The argument devolved predictably from there. Serena let it run for a few minutes before raising her hand for silence. "We'll send representatives to meet with Thayer, assess his sincerity. If he's genuine, we welcome him. If he's a plant, we make it clear what happens to spies in Valcrest territory." "Who do you want to send?" Riker asked. "You and Lord Brennan. You'll balance each other, military pragmatism and political skepticism." Both men nodded. "Next item," Serena said. "The Winter Festival. We need to decide..." "Before we get to festivals," Kyle interrupted, "we need to talk about the capital." The room went quiet. "The council's getting bolder," he continued. 3 messengers in as many weeks. Trade caravans from the south being delayed by increased inspections. Rumors spreading that the north is planning full secession. "Aren't we?" one of the village representatives, a woman named Iris, asked. "No," Serena said firmly. "We're governing ourselves within the kingdom structure. That's different from leaving entirely." "Is it, though?" Iris pressed. We don't answer to the council. We don't send them taxes. We're making our own laws. That sounds like secession to me. It's autonomy, Kael said. Legal autonomy that I, as king, have granted. The distinction matters. Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, the council doesn't seem to care about legal distinctions. They care about control. And they've lost it. She wasn't wrong. Serena looked around the table at the faces watching her. What do you want me to say? That this is easy? That the council's going to accept the new order and leave us alone? They won't. We all know that. So what do we do? Marcus asked from his position near the door. We keep building. Keep proving that the North can govern itself successfully. And when the council inevitably tries something else, we deal with it. She met each person's eyes in turn. I'm not going to lie to you. This is dangerous. We're challenging centuries of established power. People have died for less. More people will probably die before this is settled. Encouraging, Cassius muttered. It's honest, and I'm done lying to make people comfortable. Serena stood. Anyone who wants to leave, do it now. No judgment, no consequences. Just go. Because what comes next is going to get ugly. Nobody moved. All right then. We prepare for winter and for war. Hope for the first, expect the second. She looked at Kael. And you need to go back to the capital. Serena, I mean it. Your absence is causing problems. The council's using it to undermine you. The longer you stay away, the weaker your position becomes. My position is already weak. I'm allied with a rebel sovereign. Then shore it up. Go back. Face the council. Make it clear this wasn't a kidnapping or corruption. Make it clear you chose this. Kael's jaw tightened. And leave you here to face whatever they send next? I'll have an army, territory, allies. I'll be fine. You're asking me to abandon you. I'm asking you to trust that I can handle myself. That I'm not the woman you left standing in that castle 7 years ago, waiting for you to acknowledge I existed. The words hit harder than she'd intended. She saw him flinch. That's not fair, he said quietly. No, but it's true. Serena softened her voice. You need to go back, Kael. Secure your throne. Make peace with the council if you can, or break them if you can't. But do it from a position of strength, not exile. The room had gone silent again, everyone watching the two of them. Finally, Kael nodded. 1 week. I'll stay 1 more week to make sure the defenses are solid. Then I go back. 3 days. 5. And I'm taking half my guards with me as a show of strength. Fine. It wasn't fine, but it was necessary. The meeting continued, moving through winter preparations, patrol schedules, trade negotiations, ordinary governance of an extraordinary situation. Serena forced herself to focus, to engage, to lead. But part of her mind was already 3 days ahead, imagining what it would feel like when Kael left. Relief, probably. Easier to think without him around. And maybe something else. Something she wasn't ready to name. 5 days later, Serena stood in the courtyard and watched Kael prepare to leave. He'd changed into formal armor, the kind that marked him as king instead of just another fighter. His guards formed up behind him, 50 strong, all wearing Dravenor colors. A statement for the capital. The king returning not defeated, but allied with new power. You have the documents? Serena asked. Kael patted his saddlebag. Signed agreement for northern autonomy, trade contracts, military alliance terms. Everything we discussed. And if the council refuses to honor them, then I'll make them honor it, one way or another. He said it with such casual certainty that Serena almost believed him. Don't do anything stupid, she said. I could say the same to you. I'm staying here, rebuilding. Nothing stupid about that. You're standing on a powder keg and holding a torch. That's the definition of stupid. Despite everything, Serena smiled. I'll be careful. No, you won't, but I appreciate the lie. Kael mounted his horse, then paused, looked down at her. The bond, he said. I can still feel it, getting stronger instead of weaker. Serena touched her chest where the connection lived. I know. Does that bother you? I don't know what it does. Ask me again in 6 months. I will. He gathered the reins. Don't die while I'm gone. Don't get deposed while you're away. Deal. He rode out with his guard, and Serena stood watching until they disappeared over the southern ridge. Alara appeared at her shoulder. You all right? Fine. You're lying. Probably. Serena turned back toward the keep. Come on, we've got work to do. Winter came early to the north that year. By the time the first snow fell, Valcrest Keep was as ready as it could be, walls repaired, stores filled, defenses tested and retested. And every day more people arrived, refugees from southern territories where the council's taxes had become unbearable, craftsmen looking for work, fighters looking for a cause. The population of the Northern Alliance doubled, then tripled. Serena spent her days in endless meetings, settling disputes, making decisions about resources and territory and laws. She spent her nights studying the old Valcrest texts, learning to control the power that still felt foreign despite living inside her. She was exhausted, overwhelmed, operating on 3 hours of sleep and stubborn determination, and she'd never felt more alive. The bond with Kyle hummed constantly in the background, sometimes strong enough that she could feel his emotions, frustration mostly, and a bone-deep weariness that matched her own, sometimes faint enough that she wondered if she was imagining it. He sent messages every few days via courier, updates on the capital, the council's reaction to the Northern Alliance, his ongoing battles with lords who thought he'd gone mad. She sent back reports on the North, growth, stability, proof that autonomy was working. Neither of them mentioned the bond. Or what would happen when he inevitably had to choose between his throne and their alliance. 2 months after Kyle left, Lord Thayer joined the alliance. His addition brought the eastern coastline under northern control and effectively cut off half the council's naval trade routes. The council responded by declaring Thayer a traitor and seizing his assets in the capital. Thayer responded by burning every tax record from the last decade and declaring the North free of all debts to the crown. The kingdom teetered on the edge of civil war. And then, 3 months after KL left, the council made its move. Serena was in the Great Hall, mediating a dispute between two villages over water rights, when Marcus burst in. Sovereign, army approaching from the south, bigger than last time. Everyone in the hall stood. How many? Serena asked, already moving toward the door. At least 500, maybe more. They're moving in multiple columns. 500. Against maybe 300 fighters, half of them still untested. This was it, the real test. Riker was already rallying troops when Serena reached the courtyard. We can't fight them in open field. We need to use the terrain. Agreed. Split our forces, harassment tactics, make them fight for every mile. That'll slow them, not stop them. Then we stop them at the keep. Turn this into a siege. We don't have supplies for a long siege. Then we make it a short one. She was making it up as she went, and everyone knew it, but nobody had better ideas. The armies met 3 miles south of the keep, in a valley that narrowed into a natural choke point. Serena watched from a ridge as her fighters engaged the vanguard. Arrows from hidden positions, cavalry charges from unexpected angles, everything designed to disrupt and confuse. It worked. For about an hour. Then the council's army adapted, regrouped, and started pushing through with brutal efficiency. They were going to lose. Serena felt the certainty of it settle in her bones, and then she felt something else. A surge through the bond, familiar and impossible. She turned south and saw him. Kyle, riding at the head of another army, 200 strong, flying both Dravenor and Valcrest colors. The council's forces saw him too, hesitated, confused. The king was supposed to be in the capital, not here, not fighting for the north. Kyle's army slammed into the council forces from the rear. Complete chaos erupted. Serena didn't wait. She charged down from the ridge, power already rising, and hit the front line with everything she had. The battle became a blur, steel and blood and power mixing into something primal. She lost track of time, of tactics, of everything except surviving the next minute. And then, impossibly, it was over. The council's army was retreating, running, leaving their dead and wounded behind. Serena stood in the mud and tried to process what had just happened. Kyle appeared beside her, covered in blood that wasn't his. You're welcome. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be... The council declared me unfit to rule, called a vote. I reminded them that Alpha Kings don't answer to votes. His smile was sharp, dangerous. Then I took everyone who was still loyal and came north. You left the capital? The capital left me first, or tried to. Turns out when you spend 7 years letting a council make your decisions, they start to think they're actually in charge. He wiped blood from his face. I had to choose. The throne or the alliance? And you chose you. I chose you. The words hung between them like a confession. You gave up your crown, Serena said, still trying to comprehend it. I gave up a crown. There's a difference. Kael gestured at the battlefield. This? Fighting for something that matters instead of just holding power for power's sake? This is the first time I've felt like an actual king in years. The council will never accept. The council is about to have much bigger problems than me. He pointed south, where, in the distance, more banners were appearing over the ridge. Because it turns out, when you declare your king unfit and try to install your own puppet, some of the southern lords take offense. Serena stared as what looked like another 1,000 soldiers crested the hill. Flying colors she recognized from a dozen different territories. They're with us? She asked. They're against the council, which amounts to the same thing for now. Kael turned to face her fully. I'm not saying this is won. I'm saying we have a chance, if we move fast, if we're willing to do what's necessary. Which is? March on the capital, break the council's power permanently, install a new government that actually represents the kingdom instead of just the rich lords who bought their seats. That's treason. No, that's revolution. Serena's mind raced. This was bigger than the North, bigger than autonomy. This was changing the entire kingdom. And you want me to help you do this, she said. I want you to lead it with me, as equals, not king and queen, partners, building something new. You're insane. Probably, but I'm also right. He held out his hand. The system's broken, Serena. Has been for generations. We can either prop it up and watch it slowly collapse, or we can tear it down and build something better. She looked at his hand, at the battlefield around them, at the armies gathering on the horizon, at everything they could become if they were brave enough to try. If we do this, she said, there's no going back. I know. People will die. Lots of people. I know that too. And we might lose, might end up executed as traitors. Also possible. Kael's hand didn't waver. But at least we'll have tried. At least we'll have fought for something real instead of just existing in a broken system. Serena thought about 7 years of silence, of being invisible in plain sight. Thought about the power she'd discovered, the people who'd followed her north, the life she'd built from nothing. She took his hand. All right, we do this, but on one condition. What? We do it my way. No councils, no lords deciding in secret rooms. We build a government where everyone has a voice, not just the people born into privilege. That's a lot of voices. Better than the alternative. She squeezed his hand. And if we're burning down the old system, we might as well build something worth having in its place. Kael smiled. Genuine and warm and nothing like the broken man she'd married 7 years ago. Deal. The march on the capital took 3 weeks, not because of distance, because of gathering support. Every village they passed through, Serena made the same speech, the same offer. Join us. Help us build something new, or stay neutral and watch the world change without you. Most joined. By the time they reached the capital's gates, the combined army numbered over 3,000. Farmers and craftsmen alongside trained soldiers. Common people who decided they were tired of being crushed under a system that didn't care if they lived or died. The capital's defenses were formidable, but they'd been designed to repel outside invasion, not internal revolution. 3 days of siege, 3 days of negotiation, and then the gates opened from inside. The common citizens of the capital had made their choice. The council members who could flee did. The ones who stayed barricaded themselves in the palace and prepared for a final stand. Serena walked through those palace halls, the same halls where she'd spent 7 years being ignored, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. They found the remaining council members in the throne room, 12 of them, armed guards at their backs, looking defiant despite the obvious defeat. Lord Garrett stepped forward. This is treason. You'll both hang for this. No, Serena said simply. We won't. The king has no authority to... The king has every authority, and the sovereign standing beside him has the power to back it up. She moved closer. You're done. The council is dissolved. Your authority is ended. The only question now is whether you accept that peacefully or we make you. You can't dissolve the council. It's been the foundation of a corrupt system that's been failing for decades. Yes, I know. And now it's over. Garrett's face went purple with rage. The other kingdoms will never recognize. The other kingdoms are watching a revolution succeed. They're terrified we might inspire their own people to try the same thing. Kale stepped up beside Serena. You're not negotiating from strength anymore, Garrett. You're begging for mercy you never showed anyone else. What do you want from us? Exile. Leave the kingdom. Never come back. In exchange, you keep your lives. Serena's voice went hard. It's more than you would have given me. The council members exchanged glances. No good options. Finally, Garrett nodded. We accept. Smart choice. Within the week, the old council was gone, scattered to neighboring kingdoms or remote estates, their power broken permanently. Serena stood in the same throne room where Kael had sat for 7 years and tried to imagine what came next. We need to name the new government, Riker said. He'd been appointed head of security, a position he'd accepted reluctantly. Something that doesn't sound like we just replaced one tyranny with another, Cassius added. He'd become an advisor, naturally. The Assembly, Serena said. Representatives elected from every territory, common people and nobles both, governing by consensus instead of decree. That's going to be messy, Lord Harkin warned. Good. Democracy should be messy. That's how you know people actually have voices. Kale was watching her from across the room. What about us? What are we in this new structure? Good question. Serena had been thinking about that for weeks. Not king and queen, she said. Those titles belong to the old system. We need something new. Sovereigns? Ilara suggested. Co-sovereigns, Serena corrected. Equal partners. Both accountable to the Assembly. The nobles will hate that, Brennan said. The nobles will adapt or leave. Their choice. It wasn't perfect. Nothing about this was perfect. But it was honest, real, built on partnership instead of power hoarding. 6 months later, Serena stood on a balcony overlooking the Capitol and watched the first assembly session convene. 300 representatives from across the kingdom. Arguing, negotiating, building the new government one painful compromise at a time. It was chaos. Beautiful chaos. Kael appeared beside her. Having second thoughts? Constantly. You? Every day. He leaned against the railing. But then I remember what it was like before. And I'd rather have this chaos than that silence. Even though half the assembly wants to limit our authority, especially because of that, means the system's working. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their kingdom rebuild itself. The bond between them had settled into something stable, not healed, maybe never fully healed, but functional. A partnership built on respect instead of romantic fantasy. Do you think we'll succeed? Serena asked quietly. Honestly? No idea. We're making this up as we go. That's not encouraging. It's honest, which is better. She smiled. When did you get wise? When I stopped thinking I had all the answers. He looked at her. You taught me that, among other things. Like what? That power without purpose is just noise. That being seen matters more than being obeyed. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from something that's killing you. Serena felt something in her chest crack open, not breaking, opening. I still don't forgive you, she said, for the 7 years. I know. And I don't know if I ever will. I know that too. But I think maybe we're building something worth more than forgiveness, something that matters more than what we were. Kael reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand. I'd like that, he said. Down in the assembly hall, someone was arguing passionately about irrigation rights. Someone else was countering with equally passionate points about water conservation. Democracy in action. Messy. Imperfect. Human. Exactly what it should be. We should get down there, Kael said. They'll expect us to weigh in on the debate. Let them debate without us for once. They need to learn they don't need our permission to govern. Revolutionary thinking from a sovereign. That's kind of the point. They stayed on the balcony a while longer, watching the sun set over a kingdom that was finally theirs, not through inheritance or force, but through choice and partnership and the willingness to burn down a broken system and build something better from the ashes. Serena thought about the woman she'd been 7 years ago, quiet, invisible, desperate for acknowledgement from a man who couldn't see past his own grief. That woman was gone, burned away in council chambers and battlefields and 100 small moments of choosing herself over comfort. What remained was harder, sharper, scarred, but free. And that freedom, earned through rejection and pain and the long, brutal process of becoming, was worth more than any crown. "You know what I learned through all this?" she said. "What?" "That being rejected was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to stop waiting for someone else to give me value, to stop performing for an audience that would never applaud, to just be, unapologetically, completely." Kyle was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry I made you wait so long to discover that." "Don't be. Some lessons only work when you're ready to learn them." She squeezed his hand. "And I wasn't ready until I hit bottom. And now I'm a sovereign who tore down a kingdom and rebuilt it better, who took rejection and turned it into revolution." She smiled. "And if that's not worth the 7 years of hell, I don't know what is." Below them, the assembly continued its work, building, arguing, growing. And above them, stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Serena had spent 7 years invisible. Now she was seen, known, feared, and respected in equal measure. Not because someone finally acknowledged her worth, but because she'd stopped waiting for permission and claimed it herself. That, she thought, was what power really meant. Not domination, not control, just the absolute terrifying freedom to become exactly who you were always meant to be. And let the world adapt or burn, trying.